Hello, welcome again at our public Rose Science Goes Public with a public talk today with Natalia Borrego. We are happy to have you here again, everybody. And it's our last talk this year. And we will do more talks next year and tell you sorry, just a second. I have to get, okay. And we will let you know soonish which talks we will have next year here. I want to tell you that if you want to give some questions later on, please log in, sign in the YouTube channel. Then you can question at the chat, and we will, after the talk, ask them to Natalia. Natalia, welcome. I'm
Thank
very
you.
happy to have you here today. It's very special for me. I see here you, city woman, and you work with lions. And you work only with lions, also, or also with other animals.
Also with
Okay.
others, I'll talk a little bit about the other ones I work with, but large carnivores, so lions, tigers, leopards, spotted hyenas.
Okay. And it's the first time I meet you here, or the second time I meet you here, and I would like to ask you where you come from.
So I'm from Florida in the United States. For the past 3 years, though, I was living in Cairo, Egypt. So I come to Germany from Cairo.
So I have the feeling you are not very long in since a very long time in Germany. It's just a couple of weeks or something like that. Yes, right.
Yes, I just got here. I was in Botswana for research for the past couple months, and I'd only been here for a few weeks before that. And I'm sorry if you see a giant black head pop into the screen, it's just my dog.
He is really big.
Yes.
And just a second, Chris. There's something not working, maybe, or is that working the stream? I'm not sure. What I see, it's just stopped. All good. Okay. Sorry. We just had some weeks without a talk, and there was something strange. So again, I you just came back from Botswana, where you do field work, and I know you did also field work in Tanzania. Is that right?
Yes, for my PhD, I did a little bit of work in Tanzania with the lions in the Serengeti.
And I was wondering, you studied mostly in Miami, Florida?
Yes, so my University of Miami in Florida. So that was kind of my home base for my PhD.
Okay. And would you tell us a little about how, why, why lions, why cats, more or less?
Sure. So I'll talk a little bit about this in my talk as well, but lions are this really fascinating animal to study. They're the only social cats. And so that's kind of what led me to them because I'm interested in questions about sociality and animal behavior and cognition and how sociality shapes their behavior and might also select for certain cognitive abilities. And lions being the only social big cat are a really great group to study this in.
So there are no other cats who live in groups or who are social.
It depends on, so they are, when I say social, I mean they have a permanent and stable society. So house cats, for instance, will live in groups, but they only form very loose associations. So it's not a lifelong bond, whereas lions have lifelong bonds and partnerships and individuals that they interact with.
Nice. So I'm very curious to hear your talk, and I'm happy to give over now to you and hear what you will tell us.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me. Let me share my screen. Okay, is this showing up okay for everybody? Hopefully. Okay. Thank you for having me. I'm Natalia Borrego. My research is primarily on lions. Today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the adventure and difficulty of studying behavior and cognition in a very large carnivore. I'm going to start with a little bit of background in just animal cognition and what first got me interested in animal cognition and what led me to study lions. And then I'll tell you a bit about what it's like to research these cats in captivity and in the wild. So, our understanding of the inner working of animals' minds and animal behavior has come a long way over the past few centuries. Um, so humans have always been interested in animal behaviors and um, animal cognition, but our original understanding of it was rather simplistic. People thought that animals didn't have any sort of inner life, that their actions were purely based on reflex, and the concept of animals having things like emotion or personality was a bit taboo. Darwin was among the first to come up with this idea that animals probably do have an inner mind and cognitive abilities, and there's probably a range of abilities that they display. So, for example, a fish isn't going to have the same cognitive abilities as an ape, who wouldn't have the same cognitive abilities as a man. Since Darwin's time, we have in recent decades come a really long way in our understanding of the thought processes of animals. We still have a long way to go. So, one really great example is the original thinking was sort of this man as the tool maker and tool user. So, people used to think that one of the things that set humans apart from animals is our ability to make tools and use tools. And then Jane Goodall came along and saw, well, no, chimpanzees have been seen using these stick tools to fish out insects. And so then it sort of became that, okay, humans can use tools and apes can use tools, but all the other animals are probably not capable of this higher cognitive ability as we'd like to think of it. And then in even more recent years, researchers began looking at cognitive abilities in animals other than the traditional models of apes, and they found there's a whole range of species that use and make tools. So, for example, the New Caledonian crow, which is pictured up in the left-hand corner, also uses stick tools, and they make the stick tools. Recently, one really interesting example is of an octopus. So, octopuses also will use tools. If you look it up, there are videos of octopuses on the ocean floor carrying around coconut shells that they use to hide in. And so that's seen as a tool using behavior. Dolphins will carry around sponges to help and use as a tool. So our understanding of the capabilities, the cognitive capabilities of animals has really started to expand in recent years and opened up this research area to a whole new array of animals. So for example, I really like this quote, all my organs are present in a rat's body. And in the same way, I think all my emotions are probably present in the rat. So rats are one of those animals that some people tend to think of as having maybe an off-putting association, or maybe not thinking of them as exceedingly smart, when in fact there is a whole breadth of literature on rat cognition. Rats show empathy. So in one study, rats will choose to help another rat versus taking a treat. So if they are offered the choice between a food reward or helping another rat that's in distress, they will choose to help that other rat. Researchers have even taught rats to drive a tiny remote controlled car. So what this really says to me, and how these kinds of studies got me interested in animal cognition and behavior, is that there's a lot that we don't know. And the old thinking of animals as just being these reflexive creatures not capable of personality or emotion is not the way that we should go about viewing animals. And there's a lot that we can learn about their capabilities, and also why have empathy? How does that benefit an animal? Where did these abilities come from? And so as you can see, so this is just a diagram of the number of papers on different aspects of animal cognition throughout the years. And it really just kind of shows you how in recent years there's been an uptick in the amount of interest and research on things like tool use or spatial cognition, which is your ability to map your surroundings, or mental time travel. So mental time travel is this ability to imagine, to plan for the future, or to remember the past and use past experiences. And it used to be that people didn't think that animals were even capable of mental time travel, but the more we look into different species and their needs to cope with their environment and the challenges in their life, the more we realize that these types of abilities are beneficial to many species, and many species display these abilities. So my research, and what got me really interested and excited about animal behavior and cognition, is this hypothesis called the social intelligence hypothesis. So many things can select for intelligence. There are many ways that cognitive abilities might benefit an animal in their daily life. So needing to be able to, if you're a bird and you cache your food, so you hide your food around, being able to remember where you put that food would be very helpful. Being able to map your environment and know where the best fruit trees are, for example, would also be very helpful. One hypothesis is this social intelligence hypothesis that seeks to explain how intelligence evolves and why some animals might be seen as possessing higher or greater intellectual abilities than others. So, for example, why do humans have all of these really impressive cognitive abilities that you don't necessarily see the same amount of cognitive abilities or complexity in other species? And the idea is that yes, your environment is challenging. The physical, navigating the physical world is challenging and requires intellect. But if you also add to that the need to interact in a social realm, so, and by social, I mean you are interacting with the same individuals throughout your lifetime, you would benefit from knowing who these individuals are, from being able to identify similar, so identify a safe individual from an intruder, being able to cooperate or work together, or being able to manipulate individuals in your social circle to achieve goals. So mate access, for example. The social intelligence hypothesis proposes that all of these challenging aspects of social life have kind of bolstered the evolution of cognition. And so this was originally proposed in primates because primates were kind of a classic model for the study of cognition. And as I've said originally, people didn't view other animals as necessarily having the same mental capabilities as we see in primates or humans. As cognitive research has expanded, so have tests of the social intelligence hypothesis. So yes, chimpanzees are extremely social and they are very good at cognitive tests that we give them. But when researchers have tested other social animals like elephants, New Caledonian crows, dolphins, we see the same intellectual abilities displayed in all of these social animals, all these social species. And so it offers support for this idea that something about being social is challenging. Being social, you're going to benefit if you are able to, for example, cooperate with your social partners. And so the thinking is that that places selective pressure on intelligence. It's something about social complexity selects for cognitive complexity. And so when I started my PhD, people were just beginning to explore this idea of the social intelligence hypothesis in carnivores. It was a relatively understudied group of animals. There had been research on spotted hyenas, and spotted hyenas have a very similar social structure to some apes and monkeys. They have a hierarchical society, and what I mean by that is they have dominance rankings. So when you are born, you have a rank, and that rank dictates your place in society. And spotted hyenas perform very well on kind of animal IQ tests, on these cognitive tests that researchers use to test intelligence in animals. But that spotted hyenas, dolphins, there were just a few carnivores that had been studied. Nobody had yet, for example, experimentally tested cognition in lions. And I started out interested in this idea that something about being social is going to make your life challenging in ways that you wouldn't have to face if you only needed to deal with your physical environment, if you only had ecological challenges. Lions are the only social felid, and so they present this really great model system for asking questions about what are the cognitive demands of being social, and how do social animals differ from closely related species that aren't social. Lions live in permanent societies, they live in stable groups. So if you're a female lion, you live in what is called a pride. If you are born into a pride as a female, you stay in that pride your whole life, you interact with the same individuals. Males are a bit unlucky in that when they reach maturity, they get kicked out of the pride. They're the dispersing sex, and they disperse to prevent inbreeding. So it has an important function. But when they disperse, male lions also form a permanent social group. And so the male social group is called a coalition. And males will form coalitions if they leave their pride with their brothers or cousins, then they'll form a lifelong bond with these males that are relatives that they leave with. If a male, and this is really interesting and it's quite rare in the animal kingdom, if a male leaves by itself, it doesn't have any brothers or cousins to leave with, it will form a lifelong bond with another male lion. If there's another singleton, unlucky male out there, they will form a lifelong bond. So lions interact with the same individuals. They meet the requirements of being a complexly social species. However, I'm going to get on a little bit of a soapbox here. The Lion King, the movie, has gotten it wrong because their society, there is no Lion King. Another really fascinating aspect of lion sociality is that they don't have permanent rankings. There is no alpha male or king. They are egalitarian. So you don't get priority access to food or priority access to mates. It is very plastic and flexible who gets first access. It's done based almost on, well, it's done based on ownership. So if a lion cooperates to take down a carcass, all the lions that participated in the hunt will eat off that carcass, and they'll respect each other's eating off of that carcass. And so this behavior, the social behavior of lions, led me to say, well, I would like to know if the social intelligence hypothesis is supported in the species. If sociality does select for cognitive complexity, then lions should be capable of things like problem solving, innovation, memory. But the big question is, how do you test these things in something like a lion? So when I started, it had been tested in a lot of primates, a lot of monkeys, spotted hyenas, but nothing like this had been done with a big cat. And so one way to test things like problem solving and innovation are puzzle boxes. And puzzle boxes have been used across many species. The first person to use a puzzle box was Thorndike in the 1800s. And here's a picture of, so the first puzzle boxes, appropriately enough, were used on domestic cats. He would put a very hungry cat inside this box. The cat would have to push a lever down to get out of the box and access, I think they put a piece of fish right outside of the box. And so this was designed to test trial and error learning and memory. So the first time the cat encounters this puzzle box, it has to try a whole lot of different things before it's able to kind of happen upon the lever, push the lever, open the puzzle box, and get out. So that's one aspect of cognition, is just the ability to explore your surroundings, to try new things, to innovate, to find the solution to a problem that you haven't encountered before. Once an animal has innovated, has it learned? Does that animal then solve that problem more quickly the next time? Does it remember how the problem is solved? And so Thorndike's puzzle box was a really elegant way of testing this in cats. Since Thorndike, this has been made more complex. So rather than just testing trial and error learning in birds, for example, they've adapted puzzle boxes and made new types of puzzles to test things like causal reasoning, tool use, in addition to just problem solving, learning, and memory. My challenge is, how do you take these apparatuses and scale them up to lions? So I have spent a great deal of my career so far figuring out just the logistics of experimentally testing cognition in lions. There's a video here that might play. So For example, for one test, I needed to get saliva from a lion. It took 2 weeks of clicker training just to be able to put a swab in the lion's mouth. So there is a lot of effort and training that goes into working with these animals because they are so large and they are so powerful. So for my PhD research, I started off by wanting to give lions this classic puzzle box test, but not putting the lion inside the puzzle box, rather giving the lion a box that had the food inside of it so that the lion would have to figure out how to open the box to get the food reward. And that's kind of the way that most researchers have been using puzzle boxes in recent years to test things like problem solving, innovation, and learning. The difficulty comes in with lions in that they can break many things. They are much more powerful than people even realize. And I think you see a lion and you realize it's a very large cat that is forceful. But until you give the lion something that it destroys, I don't think you really can appreciate or understand how powerful they are. So the second picture down with the black box, that was a metal puzzle box. The lions destroyed that promptly. I finally settled on this white box on the bottom panel that is made out of material called starboard. So it's very bendable and flexible. The lions would toss it 10 feet in the air, it would come crashing down. The box would be fine. If it broke, it was easy to fix, unlike reshaping metal. So part of the adventure of researching cognition in lions is just merely figuring out how do you carry out this research. The second big part of this adventure is, will lions even be interested in any of these things? When I started, nobody had done this with lions. Some people looked at me like I might be a bit crazy to think that lions would even bother or show any interest. Lions really spend most of their time sleeping, as this lion in this picture is doing. So it was a question of not only are they going to destroy the research equipment, but will they even have any motivation to approach it and try to get the food? Luckily for me, they were interested in it. I started off with an apparatus similar to what they've used in spotted hyenas to test innovation. So the ability to solve a problem that you've never seen before, problem solving, which is just that, solving the problem, and then learning. Did they learn what they did? And so this apparatus, you can see a metal tray hanging down from the top. This is once they have solved the apparatus. They have to pull a rope to get the meat to drop down, and I have a video that hopefully will play and make it much more clear. So this is Savo. He's one of the favorite lions that I've ever worked with. He came up with a really unique way to solve this. So he would jump up, he's going to do it soon, and he would pull the lever and get the meat. Most of the other lions would grasp the rope with their mouth, as you can see here, but typically the way they solved it the first time was the way they always solved it. This lion is Zima, and she was a bit nervous. So this is, I think, her second trial. And so she knew the meat was going to fall down, but she didn't want it falling on her head. So she would be always a bit hesitant about the rope. But so what happened? They solved it. The first trial was likely through this trial and error learning. So they would just try different ways. They would explore the puzzle box, they would explore the rope, and they would happen upon the solution to the problem. When I gave it to them again, there was a significant difference in the time it took them to solve the trial compared to their first trial. So in their second trial and their third trial, they managed to solve it very quickly. I then gave them a 7-month gap, and they still solved it just as quickly as they had in their second and their third trial. So this was the first experiment that I ran on lions to test their cognition, and it confirmed that yes, lions are capable of solving a puzzle box similar to what we've seen in spotted hyenas and other species. They remember what they did, so they learn and remember for a somewhat long period of time. I was unable to go back and test it years later, but it does seem just anecdotally that once that kind of light bulb goes off for a lion, once they figure it out, they remember it. It's clicked in their head, so to speak. So after confirming that these types of tests are possible in this species and that lions are capable of things like problem solving, and then wanted to ask, how do they compare to other carnivores? And specifically, how do they compare to other carnivores that are closely related to them, evolutionarily speaking? So lions, as I said, are the only social felid. They are in the same genus as leopards and tigers, but leopards and tigers are solitary. So they only associate with their dependent offspring, and when mating, they don't need to worry about maintaining permanent social bonds. They don't need to worry about cooperating with group members. So socially, lions are arguably much more complex than leopards and tigers. And then also because spotted hyenas are social carnivores, and there's been a lot of work done on them up against lions, tigers, and leopards. So I then adapted my puzzle box so that it was portable and so that I could give the same exact apparatus to all of these species. This puzzle box was the same concept. There was a piece of meat placed inside the box. This is that lovely starboard material that I mentioned that is really difficult for lions to break. And the way that you solve this, or the way that they had to solve this, is you see the metal on the front of it, that is a latch. There's a rope attached to it. The lion must pull the rope, but they can only pull that rope at a 180-degree angle away from the box. So this might sound very simple to us, but if you're a lion and have never encountered a problem like this before, it is somewhat more complex than it might seem. They have to first approach the box. They have to figure out what aspect of the box to interact with. They have to pull it in the right way. And then once they get that door open, they have to remember what they did for the next time that they encounter it. And so I gave this puzzle box to lions, spotted hyenas. Here's a spotted hyena solving it, leopards, and tigers. Here's a male lion solving it. Here's a black leopard solving it. And all of this research was conducted in South Africa, except for here's a tiger at Zoo Miami in Miami. And I also worked with tigers in an outdoor enclosure area in Miami. There we go. So all of the species managed to solve this box. They managed to innovate. They showed exploratory diversity by exploring the box. So they solved the problem. They solved a problem that they had never seen before. But how did they do in comparison to each other? And interestingly, the social species were significantly better than the non-social species on this task. So on this figure, the dark gray bars are the proportion of individuals that solved the box. The light gray bars on the top are the portion of individuals that failed at the task. The first two bars, the hyenas and lions, a significantly greater proportion of hyenas and lions solved this task compared to leopards and tigers. And so what this indicates is that it gives support for this idea that something about being social is this added layer of complexity. It places added pressure on species to develop cognitive abilities. And that's not to say that there aren't equally challenging aspects of navigating the ecological world, navigating the physical world. But it does indicate that social species, that this added pressure on social species might generally select for greater intelligence. But there are still a lot of questions being asked. This is still a relatively new area of research, given that it's recently expanded to many other species, especially the social carnivores. So there's still a lot of work to be done. This was just the preliminary work to see, are lions capable of this? How do they compare to other species? The other aspect of being social, and another aspect of cognition that being social might select or might benefit individuals, is cooperation. And so this has been my second great challenge in the adventure of working with African lions. So can you do these types of experiments with them? Is it logistically feasible? Will it work? Yes. Next is, how do I now investigate things like cooperation? So the classic type of behavior, of cooperative behavior that lions are kind of known for, is cooperative hunting. But studying cooperative hunting is really challenging. Lions often hunt in really thick bush. It's really hard to see. They don't hunt every day. They can go 3 days without hunting. If they kill something really big, then they're fat and full for a number of days. And so just seeing a hunt to begin with is challenging, being there when they're hunting, and then when they are hunting, actually observing what is going on is extremely difficult. Oftentimes they hunt when it's not light outside, and so it requires a researcher to follow. Well, the way that most that researchers have historically studied hunting in lions, from a behavioral perspective, is by following the lions day in, day out. You just drive with a car out in the African bush, waiting for them to hunt and observing them while they're hunting. In order to get enough data to ask questions about cognition during hunting, you need to do this. You need many, many, many hunts. This takes time and it is challenging. So my hope was to be able to figure out a way to collect enough data in a shorter, less logistically challenging time frame. And I tried many attempts and failed trying to do this. So first, if you see here, it appears that these two lions are chasing an impala. That is actually a cardboard cutout of an impala. So it's just a two-dimensional piece of cardboard with a picture of an impala on it. I would set it up out in the field. We would have lions in a big enclosure and release them into the enclosure that had this impala. And these two lions went for it. They chased it and then they smacked into it and it shattered into a million pieces because it was cardboard. And then once they figure that out, you get one shot at this and then they never do it again. The jig is up. And so this way did not work. I next tried something equally ridiculous that had mixed results. So this is a rubber impala. We would drag it along next to prides of lions, and the lions would chase it. But it was unclear whether or not this rubber impala inspired the lions to hunt in a way that they would a live animal. So although we got a reaction from the lions and although they would chase it, it turned out to not be a very good method of investigating questions of the cognition involved in behavior of lions. So cooperation, it requires, well, cooperation can have different levels of cognitive complexity. So you can simply just allow another individual to work on the same problem as you, but you're not actually working together. You're kind of working together separately. Cooperation, you can also have the highest level of cooperation, which is called coordination. And in this type of more challenging, complex cooperation, individuals are aware that they have a partner, they're aware of the need for the partner in a task, and importantly, they adjust their behavior based on the behavior of a partner. And so cooperation for humans might almost come as second nature, but it does require some complex thought processes. You have to be aware of the individual you're working with. You have to be aware of their actions that they're performing and how your actions can complement those actions. And so one way that researchers have looked at this is again with puzzle boxes. And so I started out trying to get at lions' cooperative behavior, then not by looking at their hunting behavior per se, but by giving them a puzzle box that required them to cooperate. So this puzzle box it's the same setup as the one before, but there's two ropes attached to either side of it. And instead of one lion pulling on the rope, opening the box, both lions have to pull at that 180-degree angle and at the same time. And doing this will then open that door and they can both access the meat. And so I have another video. I think the beginning one, this one is a bit slow, but hopefully it's coming through. So here we have two female lions. And they successfully open the box. One actually is because their society is egalitarian, they're really tolerant of each other. And so I got on these puzzle box trials, I didn't get any squabbles for food when they opened it. They would nicely open the box. One lion would get one piece of meat, the other lion would take the other piece of meat. And so there wasn't any sort of competition for the food. They both worked together for the problem and then they both shared the reward. So lions did successfully solve this cooperative problem. However, although that shows that they're capable of cooperation at the simplest level, I did not find any evidence of coordination or partner awareness. I didn't find any evidence of the lions being aware that they needed a partner on this task. For example, if lions were aware of the need for a partner, when one individual showed up to the box and the partner wasn't quite there yet, you would expect that individual to wait to pull on the rope until the partner was there. So if a lion was aware that it required both that, if the lion was aware that it required a partner, then you would expect the lion to wait for the partner, because just pulling the rope by themselves wouldn't open it. But even when a lion was alone at the box, it would still try to pull on the rope. There was no difference in their behavior, whether alone at the box or whether the partner was there. So this raised questions as to why was there not evidence of coordination? It doesn't seem that lions are incapable of coordination. One of the only studies investigating cooperative complexity in lions did find evidence of coordination. This study was done back in the 90s by Flip Stander. It looked at the lions in Etosha, Namibia, and they found that lions would have distinct hunting roles, almost like a rugby team. You would have a left wing and a right wing and a center. And the same lion would occupy the same hunting role. They would display different strategies. If a lion was working with a partner that they weren't normally hunting with, they would adjust their behavior. So there is evidence of coordination happening. So the question then becomes, when do lions decide to coordinate? When is cognitive complexity required for lions? When will it benefit them? Because that's really the key to cognitive ability. If it's beneficial, then you would expect for it to be present. If it's not beneficial, then you might not expect to see it. So when do lions need to coordinate versus when can they just work alone together? And it seems, or it stands to reason, that if you have prey that is very difficult to take down, it would be beneficial for a social animal like a lion to then have a complex cooperative strategy, to have a role like a rugby team, to be aware of their partner and adjust their actions in relation to their partner. But the question and the problem still is, how can I test these things? Following lions for months at a time still gives limited data. It's still really difficult to see what exactly is going on, and it's also really hard. You can put collars on lions, but then you're not getting any information about what the prey animal is doing. And so here in Germany and in Botswana, I have finally kind of cracked the puzzle of how to get this information. So one, in Botswana, I'm working with an NGO called Leopard Ecology and Conservation, and they employ some trackers. And so these are people who have grown up in the bush. Their tracking skills are phenomenal. And so what they can do is they can find where a lion has made a kill. So they'll find the carcass, and then they can follow the lion's footsteps, the lion's tracks. Like you see in the upper left-hand corner, there's a lion footprint, and they can recreate the lion's hunting behavior from these tracks. So what I am doing now, rather than having to go out and follow lions for days at a time and collect all of this data on their behavior over years, I can now get much more data in a much shorter period of time by working alongside the local trackers and using their skills to recreate these lion hunts. So what happens is, and this is what I was just in Botswana doing for the past couple of months, we go out. Some of the lions in our study region have a GPS collar on them. We can kind of interpret from these collars when a kill has been made. And then the tracking team will go out to the site. They will locate the carcass, which in and of itself is a task. And then when they find the carcass, they will retrace the steps of the lions and the prey. And so this map that you see down at the bottom is actually a map that has been recreated from the data collected by the trackers. So at the top of the map is where the hunt started. At the bottom of the map is where the hunt ended. This is a map of a giraffe being stalked and killed by two female lions. And so on the right side, the red line, that's the first lion. You can see on the path where that lion was stalking. You can then see where that behavior changed to chasing, and then where the lion made the kill. alongside that lion's companion on the left side, where that lion was stalking, chasing, and then made a kill. And if you look back at the standard, at what standard did, we can get a very similar picture to what strategies are lions using and how do these strategies differ depending on the number of lions, depending on the habitat, depending on the type of prey species being killed. And so now I can begin to answer these questions of when do lions coordinate? I've already shown and seen that they solve complex problems, that they innovate, that they have memory, that they outperform their asocial counterparts. Now I'm interested in how are their cognitive abilities, how is their decision making working? When do they need to decide to cooperate? When do they need to be aware of a partner versus when can they just kind of go it alone? And so that has been my journey so far in animal cognition and studying lions, and how I've gotten to where I am with my next kind of big question for me, which is how do lions cooperate? How do they coordinate? What is it about being a cooperatively social species? How is that shaping their cognitive abilities, and what are their cognitive needs really to be successful as a lion? And
Thank you very much, Natalia. This was an incredible talk. Thank you very much. And I think it's a so interesting research what you do. So I hope that the audience takes the chance to ask you some questions. So if they start, please to write them in the chat now. And I have some questions. I am really incredible. Yeah, it's really incredible what you do. And do you mostly you are alone with the people who help you on your research? Yes.
yes, so with my research now with the lion hunts in Botswana, I'm always with my tracking team. So I kind of rely on their expertise because their expertise, I cannot adequately describe how phenomenal they are at just interpreting their surroundings, at interpreting lion behavior, at being aware of what's around, and just the landscape in general. They never get lost. For example, I'll be out in the middle of nowhere in Botswana and have no idea how to get back to camp, and they're just like, oh yes, you just go this way, that way, and then turn here. It's really quite incredible.
So you don't have to have any fear when you are with them.
No, I do not.
It's great. Very great. And I didn't understand really. This is everything was in the field what we saw now, but you work, no, you also work in zoos, right?
Yeah, so the puzzle box experiment, so those boxes are in zoos or they're in, so a lot of it is that work is done in South Africa. And so their zoos aren't what we might traditionally think of as a zoo. It's very big, huge open areas. And so those lions are living in the African savanna, but they're in a very large enclosure. So it looks like it is the same habitat that they would be in the wild. There's just a fence around it.
Mm-hmm. And now you stay you stay here and try to get out of the data what you have to see where it goes then.
Yes, exactly. So right now, data is being collected as we speak. We have a research assistant out there with the tracking team. I will go every few months or so to kind of check in, see how things are going, make any necessary method changes that need to be done. But they're out there collecting data, and then we also have historical data that we'll be working on. So there's a few other aspects of lion research, but today I decided to focus on in the cognition bit because that's kind of where I started and where I've had the most challenges, because really trying to figure out how to do this with lions is an adventure.
So maybe this is a strange question, but do you have any idol in the women or any men in the science scene which have done work with lions before? Yeah.
Yes, like a mentor. Yes. So Craig Packer, so he's the head of the Lion Lab at University of Minnesota, and I've been working with him and collaborating with him since my PhD. He was the head of the Serengeti Lion Project, and so he is an unbelievable wealth of knowledge when it comes to all things lions. Most of what we know about Serengeti lion comes from Craig's work. So. Packer has been a huge influence in my research.
And are they? I'm not very familiar in this scene, but how are there also women in former times which worked a lot of with lines?
So not in there are now. So more and more women are getting involved. My collaborator at Max Planck is Jen, and she's a woman in science who also studies lions. And so the new my generation and the new generation coming up, you're seeing more women in these roles, which is really lovely to see. But historically, I think like most fields, it was dominated by men, but that is changing.
Mm-hmm. That's nice. I think also I have the feeling that also young scientists also change the science a little. What I hear in between also is that there's something that is very interesting for you, also like communication in between, maybe also human being and the animal. Or am I wrong?
Yes, no, I think so the younger generation's definitely making a change. It's it's hard. Well, so when I started, it was a bit difficult for me to get into this field just because first studying this in lions wasn't seen as necessarily something that was feasible to do. So I received some pushback there. Also, being a woman in science and saying, I want to go out to the African bush and study these things, sometimes people look at you as, well, you can't possibly do that. And you can. And so I had a woman master's student who she encountered some of the same issues sometimes. And she's phenomenal. And so my know that you're equally capable and go forth. I have been lucky that a lot of extremely supportive of me. So, for example, Craig he was always very supportive, and I never felt that he thought somehow I wasn't capable of going out to the bush and researching lions. But I think a lot of people do encounter it, and I do hear a lot of stories, but I'm hearing less of them as time goes
Mm-hmm.
on. So I'm hoping that means that the younger generation not receiving the same pushback, or if they are, they're ignoring it and seeing themselves as capable because they are capable.
So you can be maybe later on one of the teachers or mentors.
I hope so.
And how is it? I was also thinking that maybe I've never thought about this really. That maybe also women do science different, especially in that what you do here, than maybe a man.
There's a difference in how the science is done or how we approach it, but I think there's a difference in the I think historically there's been a difference in the perception.
In the
And
questions,
so, pardon?
in the questions maybe, or in the.
Maybe I haven't encountered any difference in the questions. The perception of what a woman, I think there's a difference in the perception of what women would be good at, but I don't think that perception is actually reality. At least in my experience, women and men ask ask similar questions. They approach them in equal ways. So I don't think that there's actually a difference between the two. I think that there has historically been a perception that there would be a difference.
Mhm. There is one question here. How many hunts are you able to track with the help of the locals during a stay there?
So when I was just there, we were getting quite a bit. And we were also doing, so when I was there, we would get sometimes 3 or 4 hunts a week. We were also doing what we call long follow. So in addition to the trackers finding hunts, they would pick up a track and just follow what that lion did for 24 hours. So that took up some time, but by doing that, we're hoping that we'll also be able to get unsuccessful hunting attempts in addition to successful hunting attempts. So it really varies depending on what the trackers are spending their time doing, and also it can vary by season. But we can get 3 to 4 in a week. If we really push it, we could probably maybe get more.
Incredible. And what I liked also very much is the drawings. So you got them, you looked for
There
them,
should have been the drawing. So one of them was Getty Images. There should have been, maybe it didn't show. There should have been where I got them at the bottom.
once I think I saw something, yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's
Yes. No,
it's
I'm
nice.
not an artist, unfortunately.
No, not. But we have quite some artists in the Institute. I heard today that some of your group are also doing drawings at the Institute. Is that true?
Oh, I've seen drawings on glass. So I've seen some drawings that I've admired, but I don't know who is responsible for them.
Okay. And yeah, it's also a question. Did you ever? I think that the lions also try to get a relationship to the human or to you, or is that not true, or how is that, or do you feel that, or?
So yeah, so the captive lions, I mean, this isn't, so I haven't scientifically collected data on this, but captive lions,
Yeah.
it's almost like your dog or your house cat. They seem to recognize me. The ones that I work with consistently are very calm around me. So ones that might not be thought of as calm, if they know me, so they're calm because I'm not a stranger to them. A lot of them seem to be very happy when I show up because I'm usually bringing them fun things to do. So it's kind of positive reinforcement when I'm there. They get a fun thing. So yeah, they definitely have different personalities, and they definitely remember who I am. Well, I can't scientifically say they remember, but it seems to me the same way that my dog knows who I am. The lions that I've interacted with repeatedly recognize me and know me.
Very nice. Yeah, there are no more questions at the moment here. I am thinking about if I have another question. I think I really loved your talk, and I'm really looking forward to tomorrow, where we will have you in the conference with our young scientists. They are very, very curious always and want to know a lot of things. And I think they will ask you holes in. I would say, if there is no question now coming, or no. I have another question. Sorry. There is a question. Is there anything about lion societies that us human should borrow from them, in your opinion? That is a nice question also.
That is a very good question. I really like that they are so tolerant of evolutionarily speaking. Their tolerance for each other stems from the fact that they are very formidable. So if they squabble, a lot of damage can be done. But so I did, and I didn't include this in this talk, but before doing that cooperative problem solving box with them, I did tolerance trials because it would be really problematic if they did have fights over food. So I was giving them a box where they would both have to stick their head in and get 2 pieces of meat. And so the potential for fights between lions is there. And so I first did trials to see how do they get along with each other? Do they eat together? We know that in the wild they do, but this was a captive setting. And I found that yes, they are really tolerant of each other. They're very they work together. They're a society. They're an ego where every member is pretty much equal. And so I do think that we could learn a bit from that.
That's great. A very nice, I think, last sentence. And as I said already, I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. And to the audience, I would like to say thanks for listening today. One information, we are on the 16th and the 17th of this month in Radolfzell at the Heimattage, and can get the chance to go with us on the solar ferry to watch some birds from there. So you're invited to come the weekend 16 from 11 to 5 p.m. And the solar ferry will take off at the seaside of the station. Another thing, if you like, look at our Instagram, at our Twitter, at our homepage. And if you like to get our newsletter, write us an email. So we put you on our info emails. And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you being for here. And have, for the audience, have a good winter. And for Natalia, I'm happy to have you here again. Have a good
Yes,
evening.
I look forward to tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you very much. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye bye, everybody.